Before we begin, I want you to think about something very carefully. There is a skill so powerful, so rare, that once you master it, people will start treating you differently without you saying a single word. It is not about speaking better. It is not about arguing smarter. And it is definitely not about proving yourself to everyone around you. In fact, it is the exact opposite. It is the ability to react to absolutely nothing. Most people spend their entire lives reacting. They react to criticism. They react to insults. They react to opinions, gossip, disrespect, and every small comment someone throws their way. Their emotions rise and fall depending on what other people say about them. And because of that, they unknowingly give control of their peace to the loudest voice in the room. But the people who truly command respect operate differently. They understand a quiet, psychological truth that most people never discover. When someone can control your reaction, they can control you. Your anger becomes their power. Your frustration becomes their entertainment. Your explanations become their victory. And the moment you react emotionally, you have already stepped into their game. But imagine what happens when someone tries to provoke you and you give them nothing. No anger, no defense, no reaction, just calm, steady silence. Suddenly the dynamic changes. Because people expect resistance, they expect arguments. They expect emotional responses. But when they meet someone who refuses to react, they encounter something they cannot easily manipulate. And that is where real power begins. In this conversation, we are going to break down why emotional reactions quietly destroy your influence, why calmness is one of the strongest forms of authority, and why the most dangerous person in any room is not the loudest one, but the one who cannot be emotionally controlled. And by the time you reach the end of this discussion, you may start seeing every argument, every criticism, and every provocation in a completely different way. Let's begin with a truth that many people struggle to accept. Human beings are emotional creatures, and because of that, we are incredibly easy to influence, not through logic, not through reason, but through emotion. The moment someone can trigger your emotions, they have already stepped into a position of control. That is why your reaction is often the very thing people are looking for. Think about the last time someone criticized you, disrespected you, or questioned your character. What was the first instinct you felt rising inside you? Most people feel the urge to defend themselves immediately. They want to explain, justify, argue, and prove their point. It feels natural, almost automatic. But what most people fail to realize is that this instinct, this immediate reaction, is exactly what the other person is expecting. Because when someone provokes you and you react emotionally, the focus of the situation quietly shifts. It moves away from what they did, and it moves toward how you responded. The conversation is no longer about their behavior. Now it becomes about your anger, your frustration, your reaction. In other words, they have successfully redirected the spotlight, and that is where the power shifts. You see, many people are not interested in truth. They are interested in reaction. They throw out a comment, a criticism, or a subtle insult not because they want a meaningful conversation, but because they want to see what button they can press. Your reaction tells them where your emotional weaknesses are. It reveals what disturbs you, what threatens you, and what controls you. Psychologically speaking, reactions are information. Psychologically speaking, reactions are information. Every time you react impulsively, you are revealing something about yourself. You are showing people exactly how to manipulate your emotional state. And once someone understands your triggers, influencing you becomes much easier. But something fascinating happens when you refuse to react. When someone throws an insult your way and you remain calm, the dynamic changes immediately. The person who expected a reaction suddenly finds themselves facing silence, and silence, in moments of provocation, is deeply uncomfortable. For people who were expecting conflict, they were prepared for a fight. They were prepared for your defense. They were prepared for the emotional energy of an argument, but they were not prepared for your composure. Calmness disrupts their strategy. It forces them to sit with their own words. Without your reaction, their provocation loses momentum. It falls flat. And the audience, Whether that audience is a group of people, a workplace, or even a conversation online, begins to see the situation more clearly. Your reaction would have fed the fire, your silence exposes the spark. This is why emotional restraint is one of the most powerful forms of communication. When you do not react, you send a very clear message without saying a single word. You communicate that your self-worth does not depend on someone else's opinion. You communicate that you are not easily shaken, and most importantly, you communicate that your emotional state is not available for public control. People often believe power is expressed through strong words, clever arguments, or quick comebacks, but real power is often far quieter than that. Real power is the ability to remain steady when someone is trying to shake you. Because when you control your reaction, you control the direction of the situation. Now, this does not mean you never respond. Silence is not weakness, and restraint is not avoidance. There are moments where speaking clearly and directly is necessary. But the key difference is timing. The disciplined person does not react impulsively, they respond deliberately. There is a pause, a moment of control, a decision, and that small pause changes everything. When you learn to pause before reacting, you begin to reclaim authority over your emotions. Instead of being pushed around by every comment, every criticism, every provocation, you become someone who chooses when and how to engage. That is a level of emotional independence that very few people develop. And when people realize they cannot easily provoke you, something interesting happens. The attempts become less frequent. The provocations lose their appeal. Because without your reaction, the reward disappears. So the next time someone tries to pull you into an emotional reaction, remember what is really happening. It is not just a conversation. It is a test of control. And the person who refuses to react impulsively is the one who quietly wins that test. Because the moment you understand that your reaction is the very thing people are seeking, you begin to see a simple but powerful truth. If your reaction is their power, then your calm is your freedom. Now let's go deeper into something that many people misunderstand about strength. In today's world, strength is often confused with loudness. People believe the strongest person is the one who argues the hardest, speaks the fastest, or delivers the sharpest comeback. They believe power is displayed through dominance. In conversation, through proving someone wrong, through winning every verbal battle. But if you observe carefully, the individuals who truly command respect rarely behave this way. Real strength is not measured by how loudly you respond. It is measured by how calmly you remain when the situation is trying to disturb you. Emotional discipline is one of the rarest qualities a person can develop. Anyone can react emotionally. Anyone can lose their temper. Anyone can defend themselves in the heat of the moment. That requires very little skill. In fact, it is often the easiest and most instinctive response. But controlling your emotions when someone is challenging you, disrespecting you, or provoking you requires something far more advanced. It requires awareness, it requires restraint, and most importantly, it requires confidence. Because when people are emotionally disciplined, they do not feel the urgent need to prove themselves in every conversation. Think about it for a moment. When someone criticizes you unfairly, your instinct may tell you to immediately correct them. You may feel the urge to defend your reputation, to explain your side, to make sure everyone understands the truth. But emotionally disciplined people pause before they move into that reaction. They ask themselves a simple question: is my reaction actually necessary? That question alone separates reactive individuals from composed individuals. The reactive person feels that every comment requires a response. Every insult must be answered. Every criticism must be challenged. Their emotional state rises and falls depending on what other people say about them. But the disciplined person operates differently. They recognize that other people's words do not automatically deserve their emotional energy. They understand that not every statement requires correction, and not every misunderstanding requires immediate clarification. This level of calmness sends a powerful signal to everyone around them. It communicates stability. When someone maintains composure under pressure, people begin to see them as reliable. They appear grounded, thoughtful, and confident. Their calm behavior suggests that they are not easily shaken by external noise. And in leadership, in professional environments, and even in personal relationships, that kind of emotional stability creates trust because people instinctively look for individuals who remain steady when things become tense. Consider two people in a difficult conversation. One person becomes defensive, raises their voice, interrupts, and reacts emotionally to every criticism. The other person listens carefully, speaks slowly, and remains composed even when challenged. Which person appears stronger? Which person appears more credible? Most people will naturally respect the one who maintains control of their emotions. This is because emotional discipline signals internal confidence. When you know your values, your intentions, and your character, you do not feel compelled to defend yourself against every passing opinion. You become selective with your responses. You begin to realize that composure itself is a form of influence. In many situations, the person who stays calm quietly shifts the atmosphere of the conversation. Emotional reactions tend to escalate conflict. Calm responses tend to diffuse it. And when someone